Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. And we all gathered here today for another video. Um, but this one you're gonna like, as all of them. I'm sure you do. But this one is a dope one because it's sort of like a make it or break it kind of thing. And let's call this phenomena the Matrix Echo. Okay, and let me explain this phenomenon. I'm sure you witness it, and I'm sure you had these feelings like, what the fuck am I'm doing everything right and it still does not work. And let me tell you why. Okay, so we talked about alchemizing the energies, right? Like everything that starts with um, event leading to the negative feeling, and then facing that negative feeling, doing our magic to make that negative feeling a positive feeling. And of course, uh, our mind cannot do it, only our heart can do it. And that's why it's outside of the realm of knowledge, but inside of the realm of courage and surrender. And so that's how we alchemize those two energies. Again, I'm just using words for the process, but that process is real. It's like looking at that negative feeling with your soul and opening up completely until that little thing that was negative is unlabeled, untangled, and dissolves. And that brings you the background of awesome feelings. Where was the negative feeling in the background? Now there's a positive feeling in the background. We call them negative, positive, but I like to call them incoherent and coherent. Okay. So we do this, right? And then I say, okay, once you feel that good, then see what kind of image is coming from that. Like, what is your desire? And it's already there. It's like, okay, I would like it to be like this. I would like to be like that. Fuck yeah, this is dope. And then you dream, you daydream, and it's fun to do these activities, right? Because we're supposed to spend third of our time imagining things that we want. Um, okay, now and then later, we do what we have to do in the physical, right? We have the alchemy, magic, and might, or devotion, obedience, and care. And so now you end up in the physical world, right? And you do everything that you have to do in the physical world. That's basically your to-do list, right? Gotta do this. That's basically your to-do list. Um, and application of the skills, learning skills, application of the skills, maintenance, and all these other things that are required to do in the physical world. Okay. Now you may say like, well, I've do all this, and I'm still seeing these, events that I don't like, or these events come in to me that was like looked like my dream, but it wasn't quite my dream. There was like a fault with it that is like, hey, that looks like my dream, but it has a huge flaw with it. That's not exactly my dream, you know. So it's like almost like being taunted by the Matrix. But this is all lawful and metaphysical because if you know how consciousness is structured, and by the way, I got caught on this one a lot of times, but and if you do get caught, that's all good as long as you keep continuing investigating and don't give up on playing the game of life and don't give up on your soul desires. So what happens there is that time is cyclical, and it's bringing things. It's almost like on a pipeline, if you will, or the conveyor belt. It comes in these cycles, and so you can during this cycle. There's the little cycles and there's the big cycles, right? And the little cycle brings you a little desire, and the big cycle can bring you big desire. Now you say, hey, I'm doing all of these things, right? And it still gives me these old realities that I choose not to live anymore. And if you actually did all that, then it is true that you're supposed to receive whatever you, like if you planted the right seed and you catered and everything was right, you're supposed to receive that. But the thing is, it doesn't come to you on the first cycle. It does not come to you on the first cycle. What comes is the same old stuff. And in that moment, you may say, well, it's not working. But don't be so hasteful, because it is working. You are just receiving the echo from the previous cycle when things were not working. The echoes are there. And I suppose in the end, it's probably best to have no expectations of the physical world. And when it comes up in a way that you dreamed about, treat it as a gift. That's like, holy shit, And so you have no expectations. You don't put any kind of demand on the physical to give you. But if it does, it's amazing. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that, perhaps more cerebral way, is that, okay, I've done everything. That's great, because the first cycle is not finished yet. This cycle could give me the manifestations from my previous cycle when I was feeling negative and thinking negative thoughts. So it's probably gonna give me some of that from the last cycle as an echo. But I don't feel like this anymore. I feel much better. I have good dreams. I imagine good things, and which means it's a matter of time, and that second part will come in. By second part, I mean the manifestation in the physical world. Okay? So it just works in cycles, and it has echoes. It's like, even if you, like a tree, right? Like, let's say some sort of parasitic tree, let's say. Even if you destroy the root, for some time the leaves are still going to be there, right? But with time, these leaves are going to die also. Okay? So, you can say, hey, I've done everything right. I killed the roots, and I planted a new tree and stuff like that, but I'm still seeing the old leaves. But you just gotta wait for the old leaves to die and for the new leaves to grow. That's all. So there's one way of knowing that everything is timed perfectly. As long as you do your thing, the time will come for that manifestation to come into fruition. And look, some of the manifestations have really delayed timing. Some of the things, for example, that comes in, I like really wanted like last year, it really was important to me last year, and it just comes with ease this year, and I was like, yeah, I remember that one. And it may be even longer, it may be 5 years, 10 years, but it will come to you. All your dreams will come to you in the physical if you fulfill them in your heart and dream about them in your mind. They are on the pipeline, they're on the way. And I know how frustrating can be, that it's just like, yeah, fucking on the way, everything's always on the way. But everything is on the way. But today, there might be some fulfillment of the dream that's happening today for you also. But if you worry about the thing that is the latest one, you may miss the one that is coming in fruition from the past what you really wanted. Does that make sense? So the idea is if you do your alchemy, magic, and might, every day is Christmas, and every day some desire is being fulfilled, and the next day a next desire is being fulfilled. And yes, you may receive echoes and showing you basically the echo of the past. But if the echo happens, and you have no reaction to it, it means that for real you have moved on from that reality, and then there's no reaction to it. Which brings me to it brings me to a very interesting phenomena as well. The way to say no and the way to say yes with the soul is very different as the way to say yes and say no with the body. The way the body learns, it learns through pain. It's a feedback. It learns through pain, right? You touch something that is hot, and then you kind of be careful not to touch it again. You walk, you fall in the butt, it hurts. You say, okay, I'm not going to do this again. Body learns through pain, but the soul does not learn through pain. It can never learn through pain. What happens is the opposite. The soul shuts down if the feedback of its efforts is pain, right? Of its, for example, errors. Soul is learning like this, making errors, right? And through making these errors, some things are right, and these whatever this is right, the soul chooses to continue that was right and forgets what was wrong. And the way soul learns this is through peace, not pain, but through peace. No to a soul is when there is stillness and silence in response to the error. It's just nothing there. Crickets, right? And so whenever the soul has no fear of I'm going to make an error and then I'm going to be in pain, when there's none of that anymore because they make an error, and if the feedback is peace, it'd be like, all right, cool, I can experiment, I can make errors, and I can be free of making errors. And and then later I'll figure it out which felt right, and so now it brings me to what is yes to a soul. If no is peace, then yes is bliss, or any kind of flavor of bliss. Okay? And of course there are flavors of peace and there are flavors of bliss, but I'm summarizing in those two. And that's how the soul learns. And this has been like quite a bit of a challenge for me, because I've been conditioned to have an anger response to something that is incorrect. But I realized that this is not right, because I'm putting passion on something that I don't want. Passion is another word for bliss. I don't want, but then again, there is different types of passions. There's the passion that is anger, and there's a passion that is light. There's a fire and there's a light. It's two different things, right? And so the fire burns and it does its thing. Like, for example, if you keep getting angry about something that you don't want, you're going to get more of it, because you're teaching the soul. It's like, okay, I feel very passionate about this thing that I don't want, and you're going to bring more and more of that, right? You may say, well, that's kind of backwards. Yes, but that's how the soul is learning. Oh, sorry. That's how the soul is learning. Okay? And so what you want, you ought to have a very either blissful, passionate, excited type of response to whatever you want. But whatever you don't want, you ought to have stillness, peace, and calm about the things that you don't want. Okay, and okay, sometimes you may feel that anger arising. Somebody did something that was absolutely wrong, but you don't want this to happen again, and anger arises. So when the anger arises, you say, "All right, I'm not gonna take any action until I'm gonna sit with this anger until that fire is peaceful." And often that anger may turn into something that is like what I would call like a peaceful warmth, that stillness. It happened. It happens a lot to me. It starts off with anger, and then later, when I really look at the anger itself for long enough, it turns into like a warm peace. And I'm like, all right. Now, basically, I said no to that thing. Okay, and so my soul, if you can call it that way, understands that's like, okay, no to that, less of that. And if I'm getting passionate about something, what I do want, soul says, oh, more of that. Okay, that's how the soul learns, and that's what you get in your life based on these responses that you have to things. Okay, and I've had like of course, I mean, as we all do, I've had a lot of these things that would come, and I would be like, damn, like I don't want that in my life. But then it's like, why is it happening? And it's like I feel really strong emotion about this. Maybe that's why it's happening, and that is true. That's why it's happening. And so I had to pour a lot more water to make that thing that I don't want to have just peace about it, and um, no passion about it. Okay, peace and passion. Yeah, to train my subconscious, if you will, to bring me what I truly want. That's the language of the soul. Okay, it has no understanding of the pain and pleasure, but it does understand peace and bliss. These are aligned energies. Okay, and or no, I shouldn't say bliss because it's different to passion. Passion can be uh, fiery, which is like anger, or it can be light based, which is bliss. So I'm splitting those. There's two types of passion. So then, which means that the language of the soul is passion, yes, peace, no. Right? And so don't put passion on the things that you don't want. The people who are, for example, like actively angry about something that they don't want, they create more of it. And all they're going to see is the same fucking thing. Do you see how it works? And of course, the reason I'm sitting here and telling you this is because I've been dealing with that. And I've had occasions where I've done everything right and the same bullshit comes back in, you know? And I was like, what the fuck? Um, and then I realized, okay, it's an echo and it's just checking me if I still have that emotional response, if I'm still saying yes to that. And so then when I realized, and then I checked myself and I said, okay, am I having this response now to this thing that just happened again? I'm like, no, I don't. All right, cool. Now all I got to do is wait for one cycle and whatever I want will come to me. And you may say, like, well, how long is one cycle? Well, there are like harmonic calendars if you're interested in this. I think one called, what's it called? I mean, you can Google harmonic calendar and you'll find it. Which harmonic calendar is something that is actually based on the real time and not pulled out of the butt to run a slave machine, which is what the Gregorian calendar is. And then you can familiarize yourself with the cycle. There are cycles of 52 days. There are cycles 260 days. There's cycles 28 days. There's cycles of 20 days as well. Okay, and each of the cycle has a fruit cycle, and it has a seed, it has a germ, it has a flower, and then it has a fruit. Okay, so when on a fruit cycle, that's where you expect your things to come in fruition, and they do, and they do. And you put more attention. For example, okay, if you're in a seed week, you don't expect the fruit to come in. You got to work on the seed, which means what is the seed? It's like your emotional in feeling state, and that week is probably going to be all about that. You still do the things that you have to do, but primarily you're focusing on alchemizing the energies, right? And then the germ week comes along, and now these energies are alchemized. Now it's about feeling what these alchemized energies are bringing, and you go into the feelings. And it may be all these feelings are amazing, but maybe just like it's called theurgy, but you're just enjoying the colors of that bliss. It's like your intention to feel those energies is not obstructed anymore because you've alchemized it. You basically can access those feelings on a moment's notice. And so you then go ahead and start feeling whatever feelings you want to. But look, what I'm talking about, these feelings, and these are deep primordial feelings. These feelings have everything packed in them. It has, like I said, thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Everything's packed in them. These are very deeply ecstatic feelings, confirmed by the jungle. Anyway, then you got the flower week, and that week is probably best to focus on imagining and daydreaming. You probably would have easy lucid dreams on that week. Just primary focus would be there. And then the fruit week, that's when you actually do the action that is necessary for you to do the inspired action to get that fruit into the fruition. And what is that fruit? It's a life story, events, moments of life, memory bubbles. You know, that's the real fruit. It's a dream come true. Okay. And another thing I want to say about the truth, which is, I think it's what it's saying, that, you know, when people are like looking for the truth, and they're looking for the truth in information, and you're never going to find it. The truth is not information. The truth is a state of consciousness. The truth is bliss. The truth is a feeling. This is why it can never be found through learning more knowledge. It's not there. It has to be dug out through alchemy. That's the only way to know the truth. And this is why people who quote unquote have the truth are only the ones who actually dug that truth out. It cannot be learned. It has to be mindful. This is why scholars spend all their life talking about the truth, but they may not never experience or maybe had a glimpse of it. But the alchemists, they spent so much time in digging that truth out that there's just not much to talk about, really. of course, that's all right, because there are stories and storytellers, and there are people who live those stories, or there are both, so it's all good. But the fact remains the same, is that you cannot find the truth through the information. The truth you'll find through the courage and surrender. Okay? This is why someone asked me about school of thought. And I don't believe in schools for the truth. I don't believe in schools of the spirit. I think it's utterly nonsense, because if there is a school, everybody involved have no fucking clue of what's really going on. And this is why it looks so creepy to me. Because they're pretending that they're for the reason of the truth, but they really are there just to escape it. And it's just a clown show, And okay, I mean, some people like to participate in these clown shows, but I'm just saying that I completely and utterly reject that as truth, because there isn't. You may say, well, isn't there any kind of value there? People are socializing and gathering. Okay, cool. Socializing, gathering is all good, but they're socializing and gathering. They could socialize and gather for any other reason but a pretentious nonsense. So anyway, that's just my take. But this is why I say that spirituality is a solo game. It is absolute solo. There's nobody there. It's just you and all the states of consciousness. And now, of course, inside of you, you find everything. In that complete solitude, complete aloneness and loneliness and whatnot, you find that you are connected with everything. And you find that and when you find that connection with everything and everyone, and it's like, oh shit, yeah, it was all backwards. I was looking for connections outside, but they're all inside. So you connect through people through inside of you. You understand? Not outside of you. You connect to people through inside of you. And there's nothing as good as solitude for finding that connection inside of you. If we're talking about that connection to source, for self-expression of the soul, socializing and creating and playing, like I always say, that's what it's for. But it's not for that connection to source, if you will. This is why I don't know. Anyway, this video was meant to be about the matrix echo effect, okay? And don't put all your work in it, and everything, and then see that coming out and having that sort of negative feedback to all of your positive work and thinking, fuck, it didn't work. In that moment, you may kind of lose all that work, and it wasn't necessary. It's almost like, even if you do things right, all your efforts will be rejected the first time. It's not really rejected, but it will seem like it is. So And if it doesn't bother you anymore, that means that you're really connected in your soul, you're really connected in your mind. And then, because, like, if you say, like, well, it doesn't matter what happens. I mean, I can close my eyes or go to sleep and experience whatever I want tonight. So who cares what happens in the physical reality? I don't want to force it to happen if it doesn't want to happen. And if that's your outlook, which means that you really are connected in the soul and in the mind with the things that you need to be connected. And then the physical is just going to be an echo. Anyway, I'm just repeating myself, but you get the point. Okay? Beware of the matrix echo. It does not mean that you have done things wrong. It just means that it's not for this cycle. That's what it means. And it also means gives you another opportunity to see if there's still something left in there. You see? So you can twist it around and say, okay, let me see that rejection of my dream. Let me see if that still moves me the way it moved me before. You can twist it all around and make that even as a practice, an approach for manifestation of the dream, you see? So when you're completely and utterly dedicated to playing the game of life in the way it's meant to be played, and you don't deviate from that, everything falls into place. Okay? And look, I'm still saying that it's 3 levels. I'm not saying that there's one is an answer, another answer is an answer. No, there's people who talk about it and say, like, oh no, alchemy is the only thing that you need, or that 0 point is the only thing that you need. Others are saying, no, you gotta keep on imagining the things that you want, and that's all you need. And they're saying, like, no, you gotta keep on grinding, and that's all you need. I'm saying you need all of those. You know? Alchemy, magic, and might, devotion, obedience, and care. And if you understand what that is, and if you want any religion, that would be the only religion that you need. And what is it? It's the principles of consciousness. And as you can see, you don't need to create a church out of it, or a group of people, or, like, as people call it, religion, in the sense of groups of people. No, religion, like I said, is a solo game, but nevertheless, you may need a map. And this is why, like, I acknowledge the only knowledge that you need is this knowledge that points your consciousness to where it needs to be pointed. Does that make sense? This is why what people call a prince, or principles, or princess, is the person who understands the principles of this reality and follows them, but they're not yet a king or a queen. Because that happens when, after continuous following of these principles, they are nearing closer and closer to that, ultimate. That's not even ultimate, but that, again, is probably a state of consciousness which you would call a king or a queen. And just because you are imagining it to be or believing it to be doesn't make it so. What it makes it so is something very, very real and metaphysically real. Just like as this fork is real in the physical reality, those structures are real in metaphysical reality. You cannot fake them. You cannot pretend to be that and be that. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that principles is the only thing that you need to know. And it's not big information. Everything can be boiled down to symbols. This is why in the alchemy they were using a lot of symbols, not information but symbols, because that's all you really need. Like little maps, yeah, sure, you can describe it the way you want to describe it. Everybody's going to describe them differently, but you need them as a map of consciousness of this game. You need them, okay? Because if you don't have them, then you're not going in the right way. You don't even know what the fuck is going on, okay? But if you use them, you see everything, how it works, and how awesome this game of life really is, if you know how to play it. All right? Okay, I think that's it for today. Okay, so don't worry about the matrix echo. Everything is lawful. You know, this idea is that like, oh, we don't control anything, everything is just happening, is not true. Everything is absolutely lawful. Even infinity is lawful. There's not a pixel out of place. It corresponds to your states of consciousness almost, well, I shouldn't say almost, directly. There might be time lags, but it corresponds to it to a dot. There's not a thing out of place. You have to understand that there's not a thing out of place, and it's not a, you know, the difference between causality and the causation. The way everything's been structured in the astral is a blueprint of how the physical reality should be structured, right? And this is why they don't. Some scientists like what they don't understand is like, oh, why did it this way, and why this way? Oh, because there's uncertainty. No, everything is certain. Nothing is uncertain. Anything that can be certain is certain, and you there's no even point to say uncertainty, because there's no such thing as an uncertainty. There's such thing as infinity, but there's no such thing as uncertainty. Infinity is all possible potentials, and so then you can call that uncertainty if you want, but there's nothing uncertain about it. It's always been there and it's always will be. But what you're going to withdraw from that infinity is going to be 100% certain based on how you approach it. It's going to be 100% certain. It's going to respond to you exactly of how you approached it. Okay? And if you're comfortable with an infinity, then you can look at the reality as a scientist and not get lost in materiality. That's the only thing that you got to accept. You got to include the factor of infinity, and then all your mathematics is going to be all right. But don't call it uncertainty, because there's no such thing. And so a lot of times, for example, you may feel uncertain about something, right? For example, as a man, everything that I'm talking about this is quite masculine approach, I suppose. But if you can figure out everything that can be certain and how it all works, and exactly, you know, like what you've manifested and how it all happened and when it all happened, like, I mean, you can get this to a real science, and you'll see that fuck is on the dot. It's not a second late. It's nothing's out of place. But of course, you got to be really into it to do to do that research to see that that's indeed the case. But it's true. That's indeed the case. Okay. So then all your uncertainty kind of goes away when you're certain of how it all works. But you may say, like, well, this is boring if I'm certain about everything. It can never be boring because you're dealing with something that has infinity. You have a state of consciousness that is always infinite. It can never be boring, but it will give you for certain of what you're going to ask of it. But that can never be boring. How can it be boring? You can never be bored of bliss. There's no such thing. I mean, you can get exhausted from it. This is why you need to balance it out with peace. This is why, you can't have. Anyway, you see what I'm trying to say. But I guess to finish all that, there's two sides of it, I have to say. Like, all of insecurities is of course stems from the ego, and ego has no fucking idea what's going on. So if you feel like you have no idea what's going on, then you're probably reacting from the ego. Because on the feminine side would be everything feels right, and it's just perfect, everything's amazing, everything feels right. And on the masculine side, you could actually see how everything works perfectly, and once you see it, you see, like, oh, everything is certain. Everything that happened to me, and that I thought that I didn't want that to happen, everything was based on programs, and it's everything is like we're living in a big quantum computer. The consciousness is a quantum computer, and the binary computer playing with the quantum computer. That's pretty much one way of saying of what the hell is going on here, if you want to use that metaphor. But I digress. Yeah, because Matrix is built to make you insecure. So then you can look for security in something else besides it. You know? All right, I don't want to expand too much on this one, but yeah, Matrix Echo is a real thing. I witnessed it many times. Um, I found out about it a long time ago, but then I was watching it happening to me, and still forgetting that, like, that's just an echo, because emotional reaction happens anyway. And so it'd be like, oh, okay, I still have it, and then just keep on working. As long as you keep on working on Alchemy Magic Might, devotion, obedience, and care, everything's gonna be all right. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.